Good morning. It is Monday, still fun day. Welcome on into Let's Bet It. Lauren here with Mark Zinno. Wow, those games this weekend, Zinno. We saw some things that we didn't think we'd see. Teams win that we thought would lose. Teams lose that we thought would win. Crazy weekend. How are you handling the roller coaster that was Wild Card Weekend?
Well, I'm happy that the Giants won. Despite the fact, again, it was more of a hedge than anything else emotionally, that I had laid the points with the Vikings at 2.5. I was very happy that the Giants had won. So they played an amazing game. Buffalo gave me one of the grossest non-covers I've had in a while, after blowing a 17-0 lead halfway through the second quarter to not cover the first half spread of -7. Kind of rather disgusting. So that wasn't fun. Numbers matter. I locked in on the Bengals -6.5 very early in the week last week before the line moved.
Same.
I was on the right side by a half point, and to some of the freakiest plays you'll ever see, of that fumble on the goal line returned for 98 yards by Sean Hubbard. So a little luck helped there, but hey, it has been a wild card weekend.
It was a wild card weekend. Also, the Jags on Saturday. I know I wasn't on the show yesterday, coming back from a 27-point deficit in that second half. Wild. But let's get into the games from yesterday, because first of all, the Dolphins are kind of in that game, and then they kind of blew it at the end, right? Like, I feel like everyone was coming into this game saying, does Buffalo even have a game this weekend? Like, who are they even playing? Like, Waddle and Hill have bum ankles. They're playing a third-string quarterback. They're missing half their defense. They played really well. They were down 3 with 2:29 left. Miami was up against a 4th and 1 at their own 28. And here's where things went south. It was horrible clock management, right? All you have to do is a QB sneak in that spot. You couldn't get the call in. And they had extra time to prep because there was an injury on the field at the time. They had a delay of game. Now it's 4th and 6. And they don't get it. So it's like, at that point, I mean, it's just bad clock management. I'm really, really surprised that they didn't get the play calling, because it's an easy play call to make. You do have to give credit, though, to the Dolphins defense. Missing pieces, Skylar Thompson, he pushed the offense forward. It was a really good fight from the Dolphins, but the Bills come out on top. What did you see from that game? Should we be worried about Buffalo after this game, or was it just, hey, Miami, even though they were down pieces, it was next man up mentality, and they pushed strong and played a strong game?
I mean, define worry about Buffalo. Like, am I worried that they're going to low? I think they're the best team in the AFC. Do I worry about them able to lay points and cover? Yeah, that's a different worry. But I mean, as far as Super Bowl, you need to worry about. I have 2 tough games against Cincinnati and Kansas City to get to the Super Bowl. And if they pass through that moment, I don't know that unless somebody upsets San Francisco, I don't think that there is a team that really Buffalo would lose to on the NFC side. So, I mean, I think they're in good shape right now. I don't worry about it too much, but still, again, this is a team that has played with fire all year long. They've been in a lot of close games. They've laid a lot of big numbers and haven't covered. This has not been a very good spread team this year, but somehow they managed to win 13 regular season games and now a playoff game. So, make of that what you will.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, I'm riding high with the Buffalo Bills. I'm really excited for the game this weekend, which is going to be fun. The Bengals taking on the Bills. We'll get into those divisional matchups in a little bit. Next up, we had the afternoon game, the Vikings, who took on your New York Giants, and the Vikings kind of blew it too. They had an impressive 11-0 record in one-score games. Well, that luck decided to run out on their 4th and 8 and their own 48. Kirk Cousins threw a 3-yard out route to TJ Hawkinson. Like, why are you throwing that ball with the season on the line? You need 8 yards.
Yes, I get it. And I said the same thing. I'm like, how do you throw the ball that short of the sticks on 4th down? Here's the thing. And you have to go back. I get it. You have to go back and watch the play and look at, like, the overhead angle or the all-22. He had Justin Jefferson on his right and TJ Hawkinson in the slot on his right. Obviously, those are the 2 guys he wanted to put the ball in his hands, and no one would object. That's a bad idea. But Justin Jefferson was bracketed. He had double coverage over the top, and Hawkinson was underneath. And really, more of that is on Hawkinson than it is necessarily on Kirk Cousins. He cut his route off way too short. I mean, he needs to get
Yeah.
closer to the sticks because he's all alone. If he breaks that tackle, it's an easy first down, but you just can't assume you're going to be able to break a tackle. In reality, if Kirk Cousins had left, KJ Osborne was wide open coming across the middle. He just never looked in that direction because, again, there was pressure coming. He didn't have time to get through everything else, but obviously he was staring down JJ and TJ Hawkinson, JJ and TJ, and he threw the ball to one of those guys. I mean, that's, ultimately what you're going to do in those spots because, the game is on the line. You have to put the ball in the hands of your best players. So, yes, it's a bad look. It's embarrassing, but it's not the reason why the Vikings lost the game.
No, I mean, yeah, the reason why they lost the game is because the Giants played a perfect game. We were just talking about that before the show started. I feel like everyone heading into this game said it's going to be the Giants' run game. They need to really rely on Saquon Barkley. That's how they're going to defeat this Vikings defense. Well, Daniel Jones took advantage of the Vikings secondary, too. He was 24 of 35, 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He also used his legs a ton. I mean, he had 78 rushing yards. He was the leading rusher on the team. And I don't know. Everyone, this was a great game by the Giants. The Vikings 11-0, one score luck record ran out. I mean, it was going to run out eventually, right? Because statistically, that's improbable to win 11 one-score games. But good for the Giants. Moving on to the divisional round, they played a perfect game, and I'm sure you're very happy for your team heading into next weekend.
I am. Moving on to play a Philadelphia Eagles team that the Giants have been epically bad against for the last decade. The Eagles are 16-4 against the Giants straight up in their last 20 meetings. Okay, Eagles money line, anybody? I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's just, they have had a bad run with the Eagles. And since 2010, I think that they are, I want to say the number is something like 24-6. The Eagles are 24-6 against the Giants. It's an insane run that the Eagles are.
Yeah.
They've just owned the Giants as of late.
It's crazy. So, I mean, we're all kind of leaning Eagles in that spot, but good for the Giants to get there. We'll see what happens. And last but not least, let's talk about the final game of the evening. Obviously, the Bengals taking on the Ravens. With the Ravens, John Harbaugh still has that timeout left this morning. They drove all the way down to the 17-yard line with 1 minute and 17 seconds left. Harbaugh let more than 30 seconds run off the clock by not using one of his 2 timeouts. After that, it kind of got messy. Tyler Huntley, though, cannot hang his head because the dude played extremely well. 17 of 29, 226 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. It was the Bengals defense in the fourth quarter that really stepped up. They didn't allow a fourth quarter point. They limited them to 5.5 yards per pass. The first 3 quarters, they were averaging 9.6 yards per pass. But the Ravens, they fought. They played a good game. And Tyler Huntley did everything that he basically could do besides fumbling at the half-yard line with that QB sneak kind of reaching over. I feel like that's always a dangerous play to have too at the end of games. I get it, you want the touchdown, but it's either going to be a touchdown or it's probably going to be a fumble in situations like that. So the Bengals end up taking it. They move on to the next round. They're taking on the Bills. What were your thoughts on the Ravens fighting back with no Lamar Jackson and Tyler Huntley playing so well?
I mean, I told everybody that the Ravens are one of the most well-coached, well-prepared teams in the league. They almost never get blown out for a reason because they're so well-prepared for everything that they do. So, I knew this was going to be tight one way or another, but I bet the number at 6.5 and got lucky. When it got to 8.5, even on the Pickswise website, when it was 8.5, I wrote up Ravens plus 8.5, just because it was one of those where, you get past that key number of 7 and we're in a different conversation. So all that being said, I do want to address the John Harbaugh thing and the timeouts. Look, I scream, and you've heard me say this before, timeouts are not redeemable for cash. If you save them, it doesn't help you. You get nothing for them.
Yes.
However, there is one alibi that I will give to John Harbaugh and John Harbaugh alone. Look, I don't know if anybody asked him after the game. I didn't even see it. But I would have bet a better part of my mortgage that had the Ravens scored a touchdown there, John Harbaugh was going for 2. He was not playing for overtime. And his whole ideology was, I'm going to leave them under 20 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever it is, when we score this touchdown, because I'm not giving him the ball back, with a 1-point lead in a field goal game to go down the field and kick a field goal with one of the better kickers in the league. Well, by the way, the 88 kicker missed a field goal in that game. Anyway, but, that was the math of the whole thing. The clock wasn't really his enemy because of the field position he was in and how much he was going down the field. He didn't want to leave any time for Cincinnati. He had planned to score with under 15 seconds left and then go for two, get the two, and get the hell out of there. He was not playing for overtime at all. So that's the only – and I know that about John Harbaugh. We've seen him do it before over and over again. I even tweeted it out. I go, he's going for two here as soon as he scores this. Harbaugh was not going to play around with that team and try to go for overtime and leave it up to chance because, again, are the odds in his favor with Tyler Huntley at quarterback? Now, he played great, but in general, do you like the odds of Tyler Huntley versus Joe Burrow in a must-score situation? I'd rather take Joe Burrow. So, again, I think that's exactly what Harbaugh was doing and why he let the clock run the way it did, because he's like, we're in position here. We don't need to call a timeout. We're moving the football. When it came down to it.
Trusting his team in that point. Yeah.
So that's how that whole.
Totally. I mean, I feel like a lot of these games yesterday and Saturday too were way closer than basically any of us predicted. I feel like we thought probably 3, maybe 4 of the 5 of them were going to be absolute blowouts, and they weren't, which I'm excited for all of us as football fans because we got 3 freaking good games yesterday and we got 2 really good games on Saturday. So that was exciting. Well, 2 really good games until the Niners blew it open in the second half. Other than that, 4 out of the 5 were phenomenal games to watch, and I'm excited for all of us as football fans. We got one more wild card weekend, even though it's not necessarily the weekend today. Game left tonight. We have the Cowboys taking on the Bucs. For that, let's bring in our guy, Bobby Stanley, Prop Holliday, to talk a little bit more about this wild card weekend. Bobby Stanley, how are we today? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. It is technically the weekend in corporate America. Everybody gets Monday off.
Oh, because MLK Day. Love that.
We're riding a 3-day weekend over here with and the rest of us in the 9 to 5. But no, guys, it was an awesome weekend. It was an awesome NFL weekend. I was not on the right side of it, but the games were fantastic.
Before we get started, we're going to take my victory lap with you right now there, Bobby Stanley. What did I tell you?
He's been waiting for this all morning.
He got that in the third quarter of the game. Bobby, and I'm telling you right now, you better write this down and put it on your card because his passing yards prop next week is going to be around 240 yards, and you better hammer it because he's going over it again. He's going over – unless that thing hits 270, if it's under 250, he's going over. I'm telling you, write it down. Put it in your book.
I stand corrected. You're 100% right on Daniel Jones. He turned me yesterday. I thought he played exceptionally well in the first matchup on Christmas Eve. I said there's no way they're going to be able to duplicate that offensively, and he played even better. So, hats off to the Giants. Hats off to Dable. They had a phenomenal game plan. Saquon Barkley, I do want to give him his credit because Daniel Jones is getting a lot. There were a couple plays there. I was just in awe of how quickly he got through the line of scrimmage. There was a spin move there. My jaw dropped. Daniel Jones deserves all of the credit, but Saquon, when it mattered, I mean, people talk really bad about Gettleman over the last couple of years for drafting Daniel Jones, overdrafting Saquon Barkley. You know what? It kind of paid off yesterday. It's paying dividends.
Okay. Yeah. So, even if Saquon Barkley is good, he was still overdrafted. Objectively, running backs at 2 are way overdrafted.
Fair. But you know what? He showed up yesterday when it mattered. So I give credit to the Giants. I did not see that coming.
He got the team to win. Something I never would have expected, though, is that he'd have more receiving yards than he had rushing yards at this. Because I feel like everyone was expecting their rushing game to be strong. That's how they're going to beat the Vikings. Their passing game was phenomenal yesterday. A lot of that thanks to Daniel Jones, but at the same time, his receivers and Saquon Barkley showed up and showed out. So good for them. Best of luck next weekend, Zeno, against the Eagles. But until then, we have one more game for Wild Card Weekend. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys entered the regular season losing to the Commanders 26-6. The Bucs also lost to the Falcons to end the regular season. They rested a lot of starters, I know, after clinching the week before. This is a rematch of what we saw in week 1. And the Cowboys, Bobby Stanley, have looked far from perfect recently, right? They have pulled out wins, though, in 12 of their 16 games since losing to the Bucs in week 1. And the Bucs are 7-9. Since week 1, which hasn't been necessarily good. How do you approach this game in terms of props? And what are you looking at today? Give me your first prop.
So my first prop today, it's Tom Brady. It's Tom Brady at home. I'm shocked that he's a 2.5-point underdog. Obviously, the Bucs have not ended the season very convincingly, but playoff Tom is a real thing. Brady the prop that I'm on tonight for Brady is over 27.5 completions, and it's really more the number than anything else. This number he's hit in 11 of 17 games this season, but 7 of 9 at home. Now, the Bucs are still the number one in the league in pass play percentage. They're throwing the ball on 66% of downs. This Dallas defense, they're 5th overall in rush DVOA. I'm very reluctant to believe they're going to get the run game going tonight with Leonard Fournette and the rookie White. So it is a little bit of juice. It's minus 130. That puts implied probability at 56%. But he's done this 70% of time at home. So he's going to need to throw the ball 45 to 48 times tonight. I do think he gets over 27.5 completion.
Now, it's interesting you just said that because I looked at 27.5 and saw the juice. At his attempts, it's 42.5, and it's only minus 102. Now, he's gone over this number. If you take out the last game of the season when he didn't play the full game, he's gone over this number in 6 straight. In 11 of his last 12, as far as 42 attempts is concerned. The one time he didn't was in the game in Germany when Seattle, when they actually figured out how to run the ball for a season high 161 yards. The Bucs have only rushed as a team for 100 yards 3 times this year against Dallas, the game in Germany against Seattle, and somehow the overtime game against Arizona, which they lost, but which they won in overtime. So I think just based off the G, I would go to the attempts prop, knowing, like you said, that he's going to have to load up on the off chance, just that the juice is better, but he's going to have to throw 42 times, 45 times in this game.
It's not a bad line on the attempts prop. The way I'm looking at it is that Dallas pass rush is extremely effective. He's going to have to dink and dunk a little bit. Godwin's a guy I'm very high on today. Russell Gage out of the slot. So I do think the completions are going to be there, but if you pivot to the pass attempts line, it's low enough that it's favorable, especially if they're throwing the ball 66% of the time.
Speaking of Chris Godwin, I mean, you have a prop on him too, right? Just because Tom Brady's going to be trying to pass a lot. What's your prop on Chris Godwin?
It ties into the completions, and it's Godwin over on receptions. And I know it's heavily juiced at this point, but when I gave it out earlier in the week, I think it was like minus 115, minus 120. Godwin's an elite slot receiver. I consider him in the same vein as a Keenan Allen when it comes to that. And he gets a rookie cornerback tonight, Deron Blank, who the Cowboys are surprisingly high on because he's had 4 interceptions over the last 6 games. Why does he have so many interceptions? Because it's really fun to throw the ball his way. He's given up a completion every 6.6 snaps. So he's one of the most targeted cornerbacks of this Dallas secondary. Against the Jags, Bland gave up 7 receptions on 12 targets. Against the Eagles the following week, 6 receptions on 9 targets. So I like picking on a rookie cornerback tonight. I'm sure Tom Brady's going to want to do the same. And Godwin closed out the season strong. He hit it in 3 of 4 games, 5 of 8 at home. There's a little bit of juice to this. But with his average depth of target being about 6 yards, I think Brady's going to target him a lot tonight.
What
All
about
right, Bobby,
your anytime? I know, Zeno,
Okay.
you always pause so long, and I'm like, is he going to ask a question? And you sit there, and I'm like, what am I doing right now?
You know, I'm trying
You
to
love
recover from
talking,
the
Zeno.
weekend
Get
here.
those questions out here, okay? Come on
Yes,
now.
ma'am.
Come here.
Yes, ma'am. Bobby, you always give us an anytime touchdown score. Who do you like in tonight's matchup for an anytime TD?
I'm going to ride the tight end wave that we saw this weekend and ride it into Monday. So what tight end scored this weekend? Gerald Everett, Evan Engram, Hayden Hurst, Dawson Knox, Cody Bellinger, and Irv Smith Jr. Let's add Dalton Schultz to that list at plus 230. This Bucs team has given up 9 touchdowns versus tight ends this season, 3 in the last 4 games. So give me Schultz to get in the end zone at plus 230.
Last but not least, who do you think is winning this one? I know people say you never count out Tom Brady. Postseason Tom Brady's a real thing. But at the same time, Tampa's only beaten 1 team with a winning record at home all season, and that was Seattle. And they have the 6th worst home scoring margin. Do they overcome the spread of 2.5? Do they cover? Do they win? What do you think?
I have lost enough money in my lifetime on betting against Tom Brady, and I will allow him to prove me wrong. I would take the 2.5 if you can get it to 3, even better. But going into the weekend, this was my upset. I went chalk all weekend. Obviously, I was wrong on the Jags, wrong on the Vikings, but I was going into the weekend with the Bucs pulling off the upset. I still like Tom Brady to have one last run in him in the tank before he goes over to the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't trust Dak to not turn the ball over. Give me the Bucs. Give me the Bucs 27-24.
Okay, 27-24. I like it. Zeno, how do you feel like this one plays out?
I mean, honestly, early in the week I was on the Bucs, but you have to look at this objectively And one, remember, you bet numbers, not teams. So we're under 3 here. But this is also a scenario where, do I really believe, am I really going to sit here and try to believe that all of a sudden the Buccaneers offense got right because of one game against Carolina and a half against a bad Atlanta defense? Like, I don't know that I can trust them to get to 24, 27, somewhere in that range. You know, when they got 30 against Carolina, it was just the second time this year they eclipsed 30 points. The other one was when they got blown out by the Chiefs 41-31. Other than that, this is an offense that's capped out at 21 points. It just is, you know? And so for me to sit there and trust that this offense is going to be able to do something against a Dallas defense that, in theory, after getting embarrassed by the Commanders, should have a little bit more hyper focus in this thing. It's sacrilegious to bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs. It's sacrilegious to bet against Tom Brady as an underdog in the playoffs, but I'm going to lean on Dallas here, and I'll swallow the 2.5, and I'm going to back the Cowboys tonight.
We got two guys on opposite sides. I don't necessarily know how this game's going to play out. I don't want to bet against Tom Brady, and knowing Dak throws an incredible amount of picks, but also I just feel like this is a good spot for the Cowboys too, because they are 10-1 against the spread in their last 11 games following a loss. I don't know. We'll see how this one plays out. I'm not going to be the deal breaker. You guys can have a little swag bet on this one. But until then, Bobby Stanley, I'm sure we'll be talking to you all week with the divisional matchups coming up. Thank you for coming on. Have a great Monday and enjoy your holiday. Have a good day off.
Take care, guys. Best of luck.
Peace.
Thanks, Bobby.
That was Bobby Stanley, Prop Holiday, breaking down the final wild card weekend game. Before Zeno, we get into our plays of the day. Let's talk about the divisional matchups next weekend, because that's what we are all looking forward to. First of all, we have the Jags taking on the Chiefs. Right now, the Chiefs 8.5-point favorites. That total is set at 51.5. That will be the first game on Saturday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. Is this another one where we think we're going to see a blowout and we don't necessarily see a blowout? What do you think happens here?
I mean, the last time these two teams met, it was a 10-point win for Kansas City in KC, and they were favored by 9.5. So I kind of figured that they would be 9.5-point favorites. That's where it opened in certain shops, and it was quickly bet down because the smart money came in on the Jaguars, as it should, given the way that they played. All this said, the Chiefs have not been good at covering big numbers this year. They certainly haven't been good at covering double-digit spreads. But you're under a key number of 10. Yes, 10 is still a key number. And so who knows really how this is going to play out. If you look at some of the early returns on the numbers, the Jaguars are taking 62% of the tickets and 95% of the money here early on. I'm sure that'll level out during the week. But it'll be interesting to see how many people want to back Kansas City. Much similar to last night, too. With a game like this, I would advise just to wait until Saturday before you get into a wager, because even last night we saw a lot of sharp money come in on the Ravens at the end and bet that number down to 7.5 right before kickoff. And obviously that was the right side. So there's not a favorable number out there right now. I mean, this thing probably only goes up towards Kansas City. It's not going to get back down to 7. Like, this will never get that low. So right now, I think you got to wait and see if any late money comes in on KC and pushes it that way, or how much money continues to pour in on the Jaguars. But I expect with Kansas City being, publicly bet throughout the week, we'll see this number kind of go back towards 9.
Yeah, you have to remember that the Kansas City Chiefs, they have been favored by a lot of points in a lot of games this season, and they are one of the worst teams in the NFL against the spread all season long. They're only 5-11-1 ATS. So something to definitely keep in mind. Next up, we have the Giants taking on the Eagles. The Eagles 7-point favorites here, so a little bit shorter of a spread, but still favored by a tutty. Do the Giants have a chance, with their record that they've had in the past?
Of course they have a chance. Now, this opened up at 7.5, and then quickly people grabbed the Giants, which I knew was going to happen. This wasn't going to go to 8. People weren't going to jump on the Eagles. Now you'll start to see some Eagles buy. And this may float between 7 and 7.5 for the better part of this week. The Giants have a chance. Why? Because Brian Daboll this year is now 4-0 against the spread in rematches. His 3 division rematches are against Washington, Dallas, and Philadelphia. He all covered the second time around, and obviously he covered in the rematch against the Minnesota Vikings. So I don't know how it goes in the rematch, which is the third matchup between these two teams. But if
the rematch.
Yes, if you can get over 7.5 here, the Giants may feel like the right side. I'm curious to see, The Giants are the one team this week that, other than the winner of Dallas and Tampa tonight, that's going to be on a short week and back-to-back road games, right? So the Giants travel to Minnesota. Now they come home. They're on a Sunday. They're going to play on Saturday next week, or this coming week, and they got to go back out on the road for Tampa and Dallas. At least Tampa's at home, but Dallas, if they win, they're on the road. They have to go out on the road to San Francisco next week on a cross-country flight on a short week. So there's no rest here for the weary in any size, way, shape, or form. All that said, yeah, the Giants have a shot. I just, covering this number may be something different. Look, if this gets to 6.5, I think you got to buy on the Eagles. If somehow enough people continue to bet that they drop, I think you just blindly bet the number of 6.5 because it won't stay there long.
Yeah, this one's going to be an interesting game. The game that I am most looking forward to is the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Buffalo Bills. This line opened up at 4.5. Right now, it's Bills laying 4. I'm assuming a lot of people bought in on the Bengals at plus 4.5. The total set at 50.5. This is the matchup of the two quarterbacks everyone's been talking about all season long. We got the Joe Burrow taking on the Josh Allen in the cold climate in Buffalo. Do you think the Bengals cover here and redeem themselves for that Super Bowl run that they wanted to go on last year, or the Bills have their eye set on the prize at this point?
I mean, interesting, the matchup we didn't get to see, right, because of the unfortunate events with DeMar Hamlin. But this part is interesting because both DraftKings and FanDuel opened at 3.5 last night. Circa opened up at 4.5, and quickly everybody moved to 4. When Circa opened up at 4.5, it was quickly bet down to 4 by people jumping on Cincinnati, getting 4.5 as you pass 3 and 4. And now it's settled in at 4 here as we start the week. So I was actually kind of surprised. Now, remember, Buffalo was a 2-point favorite in Cincinnati in that Week 17 matchup between the two teams, right? And so now that they're home, they're getting 2 more points. Interesting. I mean, I think you'll see a lot of Cincinnati money come in here throughout the week and try to push this thing down to 3. Let's see where it goes. It's hard for me right now to pass up the 4 points with Cincinnati, even though Buffalo is home. Buffalo and the Bills, they make a fair amount of mistakes that make things, closer than what they should be.
Interesting.
If you remember the Cincinnati game, Cincinnati through the first 8 minutes of that game before everything went haywire, they're moving the ball pretty well on Buffalo. So this is an offense that's going to be the total to me is probably more curious than anything in this game. It's sitting right now below the number of 51. I think jumping that way and just taking the over in this thing would be the smartest way to go before this thing gets over 51. I think that's probably the smartest move you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And last but not least, we have the Cowboys or the Bucs taking on the 49ers. That's going to be the 6:30 p.m. Eastern time game on Sunday. We don't necessarily have a spread for that yet. We'll see how that game plays out tonight, and we're going to get right into it. One more question before we get into our best bets. Does Brandon Staley still coach the Chargers next season?
I'm leaning on yes.
Yeah.
But, he is now walking into this next season.
He's on flames.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of he's got the noose around his neck, and he's waiting for the chair to get kicked out from underneath him. I mean, you're not going to recover from a loss like that without some major changes and some real serious, hey, this is your last shot. He is coaching every game for his job next year, and I think he knows that, and I think he understands it. But this is still a scenario where there's a lot of things that went. I mean, look, if his idiot kicker didn't miss a short field goal. The Jaguars don't even have an opportunity to win that. Like, there are so many things that went wrong. When you blow a lead like that, there are so many that go wrong that it's never really just one thing. We just always conveniently run after the coach because they're in charge of everything. So I get it. I understand it. Would I be surprised if he's fired? No. Do I think he probably should be? Maybe. But I think in general, it's just one of those things where there's going to be some changes because you can't just run back the status quo.
Absolutely. All right. Our best bets. Before that, let's bet it. Presented by our friends at Superbook Sports. Can you beat Vegas this football season? Superbook gives you the chance every week to go head-to-head with the best odds makers in Las Vegas. No fancy computer algorithms. No one across the pond setting lines for American sports. Just the best team of traders in the business at the Superbook in Las Vegas. Plus, some of the best odds boosts and promo bets in the country. So if you're in Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Nevada, New Jersey, or Tennessee, download the Superbook Sports app or visit superbook.com to start your battle against Vegas. From superbook.com to pickswise.com, Mark Zinno, 3-star plays of the day. Who do we have on the site today?
One play in the NBA for tonight, late game out on the West Coast. Other plays on there still are involving the Australian Open, which gets underway this week. So check out Pickswise.com for that as well.
Pickswise.com. All right, our 3-star plays of the day. Who do you have for yours? Monday.
All right.
Fun day.
I have to do this play of the day with full disclosure. I'm ice cold. I'm 0 for my last 5 on plays of the day. I have never been below 500 in my entire Pickswise career. I'm now 2 games below 500 after starting out 2023 3-0. So I desperately
Needs
need
a win,
here.
baby.
Need a win. Now, while I am willing to bet against Tom Brady's team in the playoffs, I will take my play of the day to bet on Tom Brady himself and go over 42.5 attempts tonight. Excluding the final game of the regular season where we only played a half and the Buccaneers didn't have anything to play for, he's gone over this number in 7 consecutive games and 9 of his last 10. He's gone over this number at home 7 out of 8 times this year. Clearly, the Buccaneers have no running game, so Tom Brady isn't going to be asked to do everything to help the Buccaneers win this game. This number is juiced favorably at -102. Tom Brady over 42.5 receptions tonight in a game where he's going to have to do it all himself to win this thing. Give me Tom Brady over 42.5.
I like it. And I'm not usually an under better, Zinno, but I'm actually betting the under, the total for today. It's set at 45.5. I don't know. I just feel like this is an under game with the way that Dak's been playing, with the way that Tampa Bay's been playing. I look back at, their last game in week 1, they combined for 22 total points. The total has gone under in 6 of the last 7 Cowboys Bucs games in total. They've averaged 34.7 points per game in those matchups. That's about 10 points under what the total is set at right now. I just feel like this is going to be an under game. It's a gut feeling. I'm going to go with it. And I never bet the under. I hate the under sweats. I really do. So if I'm betting an under, I'm feeling pretty confident about it at this point. Tom Brady's going to want to do everything to get his team a win. But at the same time, it's going to be Tom Brady versus Dallas's defense that has been phenomenal all season long. So at that point, I'm taking the under 45.5. Don't talk me out of it. We're doing it, baby. Going to have the under sweats tonight, but that's okay. That's it for us today, guys. Find us on the Pickswise YouTube channel. Go to Pickswise.com. Follow us on Twitter. That's Mark Zinno. I'm Lauren Jabara. We will see you again tomorrow to recap everything that was Wild Card Weekend. Till then, have a great Monday. Let's get it. Let's bet it.